Hey all, welcome to the first video in the Quai Network node and miner setup tutorial. In these videos I'm going to be showing you guys how to set up your nodes and miners so you guys can earn some testnet and eventually mainnet Quai. So let's kind of jump right on into the video. You want to start by going to quai.network. You can read kind of some of the docs, the white paper, anything about the network that you want to know. And then we're going to go ahead and move on to the developers tab. The first thing you're going to want to do, we're going to start installing and running a node. We're going to go over some of the basics of what actually a node does for our network. So you can see right here, a node is a set of programs that fully validates transactions and blocks across our network. The full nodes help the network by accepting and validating transactions as well as blocks from other full nodes, propagating blocks across the network. So to be able to run an actual full node here, you're going to have a CPU with 2+ cores, 4 GB of RAM, 20 GB of free storage space, and 8 megabits per second download internet service. What we really recommend is for you guys to be running the recommended stuff. The minimum can excessively tax your computer, CPU, RAM, all kinds of stuff like that. So it's best to have the recommended settings. But now we can go ahead and move on to the installation tab. This is kind of everything that you're going to need to get your node set up and running. There are a couple things that I want to run to, well, actually let's get to that later. But they're going to be kind of two distinct paths that we're going to have to follow here, one for Mac users and one for Windows users. Commands are going to be a little bit different, downloads are going to be a little bit different. So I just kind of walk you guys through depending on which operating system you're running on. So we're going to start with Mac here. These commands are only going to be for Mac users. So if you're Windows, skip further into the video, pick back up where we start off with the Windows stuff. So the first thing that you're going to want to do as a Mac user is download and install Golang. Golang, we can go down to their webpage, click Mac, and download the most current version of that. And once we're done with that, we're going to download and install Git. It's going to be the same kind of deal. Just go to the Git webpage and download the Mac version. It should be right there. And once we're done with that, it's pretty much all the basics stuff that you need for Mac. Make sure that you have a terminal. We also recommend that you create a desktop folder or folder in some location that you know how to navigate to, titled Quai, so that we can go ahead and download all of the GitHub repositories into that folder. As far as Mac goes, it's going to be kind of the basic stuff that you need to get started. We're going to go ahead and move on to Windows here. So Windows users, you can kind of pick back up with me right now. We're going to run, the stuff's a little bit different, so we'll run kind of right through that. So for Windows users, I recommend going ahead and also downloading Git. You're going to need this same kind of way that we did that for Mac, but a couple key differences. Windows is not a native Linux platform, and so because of that, we're going to need a Windows subsystem or a Windows subsystem for Linux, or a Linux virtual machine that runs on top of Windows. And you can do that by, we're going to go to the Microsoft Store and download, it's called Ubuntu. Ubuntu is going to be a terminal overlay that runs on top of Linux. Already got it downloaded here. There should be a download and install button right here. You're just going to want to click that and get it up and running. Downloading Ubuntu on Windows requires you to enable the Windows subsystem for Linux. Guides on how to do that can be found online. We're not going to go through that right here, but it requires a couple of prerequisites to actually set that up. We'll go ahead and exit out of that, and once you have Ubuntu downloaded, we can go and open it on up, get a new blank terminal, and we're going to split the pages here and go ahead and get started. So first thing that you do when you open Linux after you make your new username and all of that good stuff, you're going to want to make sure that Linux is your Ubuntu system is completely up to date. So you're going to want to do sudo apt get update, if I can type correctly here, that will update Ubuntu to the most current version with all the packages that you're going to need. Once you run that, it'll spit a bunch of stuff out at you, but we're not actually going to run that. Well, actually, we can run that. Updates, and of course I don't have the password, so we're just going to have to Control-C. So after we have finished getting our updates, we're going to want to install some key developer libraries. Windows doesn't natively have them, so we are going to go ahead and grab that using the command sudo apt install build-essential. And that will spit out a bunch of different stuff out at you. Just make sure that it runs all the way through with no errors. And then once we've got that down, we're going to go ahead and grab this command right here. This will actually install Golang, which is the native coding language that our nodes run on. And the most current version is actually Go 1.17.7, so you're going to want to change that in there. Go ahead and run that. I'm going to because I already have Golang downloaded, but it'll again spit out a bunch of stuff at you. So the next thing that we're going to want to do here is enter into as a root user. For a lot of people running on servers, this will be a little bit different. You're likely going to be operating root the whole time, but if you're operating on a local computer, don't always want to be running in root. We can enter root though using this command. I'm not going to put in the password here, but shows up as a root user instead of this max that we have right here. So we'll Control-C, get out of there. Once we have entered into the root user, we can now run this command, the second command. On our web page, you're going to want to make sure that this is set to mess that one up there. We're going to want to make sure that this is set to 1.7 as well, so that we are opening the file that we just downloaded, and we are also removing any previous instances of Golang on our local machine. So that kind of entails the entire Golang setup for Windows. And we're going to kind of come back into where we've got Mac users as well. You guys can join us here again. So you're going to want to open up your terminal and get to your folder that you have Quai installed as. We're going to go ahead and copy this export command. This export command sets Go as accessible from any folder, any directory on your computer, which is what we're going to need to be able to actually access the code. Go ahead and paste that in there. It'll run with no output. No output, it's all right. So as a clarification, I guess once we actually get into the GitHub repository that we've got here, we can make that clarification. So now what we're going to want to do is clone our GitHub repository. This can be done by grabbing the link that says git clone right here. We're just going to go ahead and clone on into that. Let it get everything that we need, and we're good to go. So now we have the GitHub repository onto our computer. We're going to want to enter into that repository directory using cd go-quai. cd is a basic Linux command. If you guys don't understand Linux command line stuff, have never had experience with it before, I recommend going and watching a video on just the basics of Linux so you can get used to navigating around within your terminal, as that's going to be very essential for actually running a node here. And so now that we're in the go-quai repository, I want to make a clarification for Spartans who ran previously on the Stone Age Testnet. We're now in Bronze Age Testnet, so the previous one was Stone Age. You guys are going to have to run a couple of different commands to clear a lot of your old logs. The first one being rf node logs. This will clear all of your node logs from last testnet. So you're going to run that real quick. It'll get rid of everything. And the next thing that we're going to want to do is clear, let's see here, clear the database. This can be done by running this command, build /bin /quai, and then remove db. Well, this must be done after we make go-quai. So in the We're gonna have to run this a little bit later. My apologies for misstepping in this order here, but we're gonna have to do now. You're gonna kind of back to all users here is we're going to want to copy our network.env.dist file into a local environment file on our local machine. Do that right there. And then that affords us the ability to generate the binary, which can be seen right here. Generating the binary just takes all of our code and turns it into computer language. Wait for this to kind of go ahead and build itself. Sweet. So now that we've got go-quai built, we can go ahead and grab that removedb command. If you're a Spartan who ran previous testnet, this removes all of the databases that we had from last testnet. So we are all set and good to go. So now what we're going to want to do is we're going to change a couple things in your network.env file. This is a local file on your machine that contains some of your information. We've got slice numbers. This is a couple of stuff that you can kind of experiment with later and look into the code, but we are going to set our stats name and stats password. So you can choose your stats name as whatever you would like. You can choose your stats. We're going to put in the stats password, which is Quai Network Bronze, all lowercase, all one word. So we're going to kind of go ahead and explore this document a little bit later with some of our address stuff. So I'll make this brief, but we're going to Control O to save and Control X to exit, excuse me. So now that we've set our password and name, we can actually go ahead and spin up a full node. Spinning up a full node, it can be done either by this make run full node command or make run full mining command. We're going to do the make run full node command just because we're not setting the pretext for mining. If you would like to mine every time you start up your node, you're going to have to use this make run full mining command. Go ahead and paste that on in there. It'll make our logs directory, as you can see right here, and now our node is running. To be able to check that our node is running correctly, we are going to grab the cat nodelogs command, which can be seen right here. I'm just going to set this as prime, which is one of our regions. This can be set to any of the locations to check node logs for any of the different blockchains within our network. So we take a look at this. We've got a couple of different things you want to look for. You're going to want to look for peers, making sure that we've got peers. It takes a sec to actually find peers on the network, but an example of solid node logs can be found in our Medium articles. So we're going to, now that we've verified that our node is running correctly, we're going to want to do a couple of other things. Big thing that you have to do to be able to mine. If you're running a node, just a node, this doesn't matter as much, but we have to go in and generate addresses for each of the chains that we'd like to mine. So as far as generating addresses, that will be done. Let me clear this away for you guys so it's a little bit more clear. You're going to generate addresses, you have to start your node first. So that's what we did with the make run full node command. We verified that our node is in fact running correctly. So once you have started your node, you can go ahead and access the JavaScript console, which can be done by this command, /bin/quai/attach. And this second part, it's actually going to be a file directory or file path. It's going to be a little bit different for Macs. Give you guys a quick preview of what the pretense is going to be for Mac. It should be tilde/library/quai, and then whatever location context that you're choosing to make the address for. We can go through that in just a second. The Windows command on Windows, what you're going to want to do is do /home/your username, which can be found right here, and then we'll do dot quai slash. Now we're going to add the location variable that we want. So this, we have 13 different chains, so there are 13 different locations. But we're going to stick with prime right now. Note that this can also be changed to any set of region. I could do region with the number 1 through 3, and we can also add a zone on the end if you want to access one of these zones. You can set that any number 1 through 3. But for now, I'm just going to stick with the prime chain to geth.ipc. Oh, error there. And that opens up the JavaScript console for us. So, the JavaScript console, this is going to be used to kind of access a number of different things. For our intents and purposes right now, it's going to be used to generate addresses, which we need for mining, so that the miner can send your testnet quai to your own addresses. And that the command to do that is going to be personal.new account with open parenthesis, close parenthesis, and we'll enter in a passphrase, and sets us an account for the prime chain. Because Quai Network is merge mined, you can mine multiple different chains at once. You'll be able to mine the prime chain, be able to mine a region chain, and a zone chain within that region. Because of this, I encourage you guys to go make addresses with different pretexts. So accessing the JavaScript console with different location pretexts, like prime, you can change it to a region, or a region with its additional zone. You're going to want to make addresses for the prime chain, a region chain of your choice, and a zone chain of your choice within that region, to make sure that you're getting quai sent to the addresses for all of those different locations. Sorry if that's a little confusing. We can kind of walk through it here. I'm actually going to open up a sticky notes just so we can keep track of our addresses. Let's see here. Pull this on over here. All right. So we've got a blank sticky notes. Just going to grab this address here. We're going to denote this as our prime address. We can paste on in there. We're going to want to set a region address as well. I'm going to pick region 2. And then we're also going to want to pick a zone address within that specific region. Excuse me, can't type. And for that, I'm going to pick region 3. So what we're going to do here is, now that we have our address for our prime chain, we can exit the JavaScript console. I'm going to pull the previous command using the up arrow, and I'm going to set the location pretext to region 2. This allows us to access the JavaScript console inside of region 2. Give it a sec to see if it'll pull up. Yep. So now we're going to generate an address for our region 2. Make the passphrase, do all that good stuff. And we're going to go ahead and grab this address. I'm going to paste it on in as our region 2 address. And finally, we are going to go pick our zone address. We're going to change the location prefix or pretext to the zone of our choosing. That should be, in this case, zone 3. Wait for the JavaScript console to pull on up, and then run again the personal.account commands right there. And we're going to grab this last address. Let's see. Paste it on in there. So now that we've generated all of our addresses, we're going to have to input them into a specific location. And we're going to go ahead and into our network.env file and open it on up. And we're going to go down to our Coinbase addresses. The addresses that are currently in here upon startup are null. They're just sending to nowhere. So we're going to replace these with the addresses that we actually just generated by doing that. And then we're going to, since we made an address for region 2, going to replace the region 2 address. If I can copy this command, let's see. There we go. And lastly, we're going to go to the zone 2.3 and replace it with our region 2 zone 3 address. Paste it on in there. So I'm going to kind of give you guys a general walkthrough as to what this network env file is. The stuff up at the top, slice number, you can choose a specific slice of node that you'd like to run. Next, below we've got stats name, kind of stats info. It'll be broadcasting all of your node data to the stats host pages. We've got your unique Coinbase addresses, which is where your quai will be sent after mining. Lots of ports here, kind of a bunch of other stuff that we can set. CPU threads allows us to kind of alter the load that is placed on our CPU by running a miner. So after we've kind of gone through all that, we're going to Control O to save and then Control X to exit. Now that we have generated all of our addresses, we've set up our node to completely run, all that kind of stuff. We're pretty much done. The only thing that I have left to actually show you guys is how to stop your node and update your node. So big kind of emphasis on updating. We want you guys to keep your nodes up to date to ensure that you guys are receiving your quai rewards. Really want to make sure that you guys are keeping everything up to date. So to be able to do that, we're going to stop our node using the make stop command. Kind of remove this. Make stop command. That will stop all of our nodes. It'll print out all of these PIDs. We're going to want to run make stop until we do not see any more of these numbers right here. And to update our nodes, you're going to want to do a git pull or a git pull origin main. Doesn't really matter as much, but we are going to pull all of the most recent updates from the GitHub repository. As we can see, we're already up to date here. But if you had any changes, you would want to regenerate the binary with those changes using make go-quai. And once that is finished, you're all ready to start up your node again using make run full node or make run full mining, depending on which set of nodes you want to run. But that kind of concludes everything that we wanted to go through in this video. Show you guys how to install all the prerequisites, get the repository onto your computer, configure the network.env file, start your node, stop your node, and update it. So thank you guys for kind of following along with me. I'm really glad that everybody, the big interest that we've had in the Bronze Age Testnet, and I hope to see you guys in the Discord. Thank y'all.